weeks. Last week I got to spend time at Narrogin Baptist Church. So I've got family down in Narrogin, so I go down every now and then, and I got to go and be there. And again, I was reminded how amazing it is that you have all these expressions of churches, not only within the city of Kalamunda, but throughout the country and, of course, throughout the world. It's just so cool to be able to go to another place and go, hey, you guys love Jesus as well. You love your community as well. You want to see people grow as well. So that was really encouraging to go and be a part of that with all of them. One thing while I was on leave, if I'm allowed to be philosophical for a second, one thing while being on leave that I was reminded of is that it doesn't matter how good your time off is, and I had a great time off, lots of time with family, friends, I really enjoyed it. If the time on the job is not refreshing, no amount of time off makes up for unhealthy or unhelpful time on. So I really am enjoying getting back into the flow of things again, and I was reminded, as good as it is to relax and enjoy some time off, it's also good to come back and step back into things and be back into purpose and that. There is a busy time in the life of our church. As I look around, I can think about Messy Church coming up on Saturday. How cool is that? I think about Bellevue Baptist Church. We had Carmel come and share a couple of weeks ago. And the fact that we get to be in an affiliation with them and get to partner with those guys is really cool. You may not be aware of this, but there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with Claridge Retirement Village. And the board and Gary and a bunch of guys have done a lot of work to get that going in the right direction. So many things happening in the life of our church, but you know what? It's good stuff. But I just want to make sure as we begin, and as I come back from leave, I'm just thinking about it, there's some opportunities to be refreshed and do some things as we go forward. So I've got a slide here about 3 things that I've just wanted to stay focused on, and I've already messed up on on point 1 because I did it wrong. Look at that. Choose clarity of being comfortable. That's not right. Should be choose clarity over being comfortable, but someone with attention to detail would pick that up. Anyway, this is why I do my own slide, so I can take the fall for when I botch it like that. Anyway, we'll see what other spelling mistakes come out. It must kill some of you guys. If you're an English teacher like Maureen, if you've ever seen Maureen draft or correct a document before, you're incredible. And I'm always fearful with my slides that you're going to judge them. So I'll just call it out up front. But a few things when I was on my time off I thought about. I'm like, just being clear over being comfortable is so important. Assuming the best over believing the worst is crucial. And increasing my trust that Jesus is ahead of us and ahead of me personally and us as a church is just so very, very, very important. So thank you very much. It's great to be part of this church community. As I said before, thanks to Carmel for coming and preaching. And I want to say a big thank you to Lauren last week as well. Like, that message was incredible. I got to hear it on Apple Podcasts, and I just want to say it was amazing. The message that there is a hope and a future despite of the voices that are around us was really, really just a great message for me personally. And the ice cream analogy was like spot on. I loved that. So if you haven't heard it, go back and have a listen, because it's such an encouraging message. So, thank you. We're beginning a 6-week journey today. I like beginning journeys with us as a church. It's a lot of fun. And I feel that given the season that we're in, having a look at faith and how we build our faith is so very important. As I said a second ago, it's a busy time, but doesn't it feel like it's always a busy time? Like, I just want to ask, like, those of you who are retired, did you think you'd get to retirement and the busy time would go away? And then all I hear again is you get to retirement and it doesn't go away. It gets busier. I don't know how that works, but it seems like there's always activity. And I just want to say, to begin this series and to look at the fact that we need to keep focused on Jesus and not get distracted by the activity is so very important. So over this 6-week journey together, we're going to be looking at faith. At faith. What is it like to have big faith, which is what we're going to look a little bit at today. And we're going to be spending the next 5 weeks looking at how do we cultivate a growing trust in Jesus? How do we cultivate faith that grows and grows and grows? And my hope for you personally, as the journey goes on together, is that by the end of our time together, a couple of things will have occurred. Firstly, I hope that after our time together over these 6 weeks, that you will choose to actively invest in the way that God grows your faith. Just checking to see if I've done any. I hope that you choose to invest in ways that God grows your faith. Secondly, I hope that we as a church become more loving, more understanding, because our trust in Jesus is continually growing. And finally, and this is one I'm probably most excited about, I really hope that over this time together, you are able to be shown a picture of your life that is so big that it requires big faith to be able to live it out. My hope for you is that in your marriage, in your parenting, in your singleness, in your grandparenting, in whatever it is, season, stage of life you have going on, within your workplace, your friendships, all of that, I hope that you have a big picture from God of what your life can be like when we faithfully follow him, and that it requires a big amount of faith to be able to live that out. Now, I recognize up front, as we often do here at LBC, that people come from different perspectives. Some of you have been following Jesus for decades. So when I start talking about this stuff, you're going to be going back through the vault, going, oh yeah, I've done this before, looked at this before. For some of you, you've been following Jesus for years or months. In fact, some people may even be re-engaging with faith or unsure whether Jesus is someone who is worth trusting. Regardless of where you are coming from, our time together, I know that there is going to be something for you as we look at everything together. So those three things are what I want for you. So let's go on this journey together. Big faith, what is it? Really, what is big faith? This is the definition that we're going to work through, and hopefully you agree with me, and if you disagree with me, come chat to me afterwards and I'll fix it for next time. But this is what I think big faith is. It's just simply this: the confidence that God is with you. The confidence that God is with you in everything that you do. Does that sound like big faith? It sounds like big faith to me. The confidence that as you live out your day-to-day life, as you hang out with your family, as you're with your friends, as you're in your community, the confidence that God is with you. That is big faith. And I know for a fact that you personally have seen people with big faith in your lives. You will have a story of friends in your lives who have gone through the ups and downs, the biggest ups and downs, yet they come out the other side of it going, I still love Jesus. And in fact, even though I've been through what I've been through, I love Jesus more. And you've probably had a conversation with other friends or a family member or a spouse that you sort of think to yourself, if I went what they went through, I don't know if I could still love God. You have those friends who have been through the worst of the worst. They come out the other side. Not only is their faith intact, but they actually trust Jesus more. And you go and you say, man, if I, just as an outsider looking at what you've been through, if that was me, I don't know if I would still see God as good or see God as present with me. Somehow they went through it and came out the other side with their faith intact and stronger. They had more confidence that God is with them in everything that they do. Or perhaps personally right now, you are in a season of that. Some of you sitting there right now thinking to yourself, you know what? That's my season, Josh. That's where I am at right now. It seems like everything at the moment is just building into your faith journey. You're reading the Bible and it's coming alive. You're listening to music and it's speaking to you. You're having conversations with friends, and your faith and your attitude towards life, it's just all growing. And you think to yourself, I'm in a season of growth. And it is incredible. It just seems like things are going well. Or perhaps you're in a season where things are not going well, and you're starting to understand, man, even in the pain, there can be peace. Even in the difficulty, there can be love, and there can be a loving God. Maybe that's you right now. You are going through that season. It just seems like everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, just keeps pointing you back to God, to Jesus, and it is filling you up in ways that you just can't explain. Faith is something that we can have. And what's fascinating is that faith and the amount that we possess can actually surprise Jesus. And we're going to look at a couple of passages right now that sort of point us in this direction. So there are two times in the life of Jesus that we get from the four primary accounts of Jesus' life that Jesus is actually surprised. The authors of Luke and Matthew capture one time Jesus gets surprised, and the author of Mark captures another time that Jesus is surprised. And I'm fascinated by the fact that Jesus can even get surprised, because when I was growing up, and even now I still believe, like, I think the number of times Jesus should have been surprised should have been zero, right? Like, I go through it, I'm like, okay, Jesus is the Son of God, fully God, all-knowing, all-powerful, all that stuff. Like, surely nothing would have surprised Jesus. Has anyone else had that thought before? Like, how can he be surprised? He knew what was happening. But there's 2 times we get in the story where Jesus is legitimately surprised. He is amazed. These are the 2 moments that we're going to look at now. One is when people have lots of faith, and one when people have little faith. So the first one we get comes from chapter 7 of Luke and chapter 8 of Matthew, where a Roman officer, the people who were in charge of the people of Israel at the time, goes to Jesus because he needs help. He's part of the oppressing team and he looks at something going on. His servant is very sick and he goes, I need to go to Jesus because I think Jesus can heal him. And the story of Matthew 8 gives us this. This is Matthew's retelling of the interaction. So Jesus went into Capernaum and an officer in the Roman army came to meet with him to ask for his help. He said, Sir, my servant is lying in bed at home. He can't move his legs and he has a lot of pain. Jesus said to the officer, well, I'll go with you to your house and I will make your servant well again. Now, hit pause for a second. That is a good offer, right? Jesus was willing to go with him to go back there. There's other stories in Jesus' life where the crowds are saying, come with me, come over here, come over here. And Jesus, for whatever reason, chooses not to go with them. But here he is talking to this Roman officer. He says, hey, I hear let me come with you and let's make your servant well again. But the officer says, no. He says, sir, I'm not good enough for you to come into my house. Instead, here's an alternative plan, Jesus, if you'll hear me out. Instead, just speak your command. Speak what it is you would speak if you were there in person. And I know my servant will be well again. And then he relates it back to his line of work. The Roman officer says, in my work, someone has authority over me. He understands the chain of command. And I exercise authority over other soldiers. If I say to one soldier, go, he goes. If I say to another soldier, come, he comes. If I say to my servant, do this, do that. He does it. It sounds to me like just the perfect parenting thing. When I read that, I'm just like, oh, what I wouldn't give for just a drop of, anyway. If you don't know, I've got 4 kids and they're all amazing. But as kids are, listening is not always, we get that. We just grow up. We don't grow out of it. But anyway. But the officer says, I get it. There's a chain of command. If I say this happens, they do that, they go on. Jesus hears what the officer has to say. Here's his reasoning for why he said that. And it says that Jesus is surprised. Or in other translations, it might say he's amazed. He's going to himself, wow. To which again, I thought, how could Jesus be surprised? But in this case, he was surprised. So surprised, in fact, he didn't keep it to himself. He turned it, as Jesus often does, into a teaching moment. And he turns to the crowd who are following him and he says this, I tell everybody here, I have never found anyone like this man in all of Israel. Nobody else believes in me as well as he does. Isn't that incredible? Jesus was surprised at the trust of the Roman officer. The Roman officer understood, hey, Jesus, you get your authority from somewhere. You don't need to physically be there because you are the one who has authority over everything. It will remain in place. So Jesus is surprised by this big faith of the centurion, especially because it comes from a Roman officer, to which you can imagine the religious people, when they heard about that, would have been like, how come he have the biggest faith? He just laid out how the Romans do the chain of command. How does that work? But the guy understood. The Roman officer understood that Jesus, if he had the authority and said it would happen, it would happen. That is confidence that God will do what he says he will do. And then the servant gets healed. Jesus says to the officer, go home. You believed that I would make your servant well again, and I will do it for you. Which is great in the moment, because go, it'll be healed. You imagine like the Roman officer being like, yes, I believe, but I'm just going to go and check as well, because, and he goes home and the servant is indeed healed. And it gets recorded by Matthew. Now, that type of surprise, that goes, wow, isn't that incredible? Look at the trust he had in Jesus. That sort of surprise, that sort of trust and faith that God is who God says he is, he'll do what he says he'll do, that is something that leads to stuff happening in our world. Things happen when we have that kind of faith. But there's another kind of faith that surprises Jesus, and we get it from Mark chapter 6. And it is the opposite of the type of faith the centurion had. This is what happens in the story. It says Jesus goes to his hometown. He's going back to where it all began. He's going back to where he grew up. His disciples go with him, and it was the Jewish day of rest, so he went to the meeting place. He began to teach the people there, and many of them were surprised about the things that he was saying to them. So there's a surprise in this, but that's the people's surprise at what Jesus was saying. Almost a little bit like, how come he's saying these things? And we understand why, because we get a bit of insight from Mark what they were saying to one another. They were saying this to each other. They were saying, hang on, how did this man learn all these things? Which I think is a bit offensive, but that's okay. Like, how did he become so wise? Like, imagine that being said about you. You go and you say some stuff and people start going, wow, he's really smart. You go, oh, thanks. Like, you think to yourself, I thought I was smart anyway. But anyway, these people are saying to each other, how do you learn these things? How do you become so wise? Then they say, how does he do these powerful things? They're a little bit suspicious. What's going on here? And then they say, we know he is an ordinary man, because they've seen him grow up. They put him in the context that they understand Jesus to be. He's the carpenter, the son of Mary, the brother of James, Simon, Judas. His sisters live here in town among us. We know that is true. So the people there did not respect Jesus. And Jesus said to them, if a man is a prophet from God, people everywhere will respect him. But the people in his own town will not accept him. Even his own people and his own family will not respect him. And then the outcome of this is that Jesus couldn't do any powerful miracles that he was doing. And he couldn't do it in his hometown. He did put his hands on a few sick people and make them well, which is still very impressive. And then these words, Jesus was very surprised. He was amazed. He was in awe. He was like, what? Why was he surprised? Because the people there would not believe in him. It's almost like no matter what he said, no matter what he did, they looked back and they said, but it's just Mary's kid. It's just the carpenter. Like the healings are happening, people are around him. He's got 12 disciples following him, other people. All these things are going on, but it's like the people cannot wrap their heads around the fact that, hang on, I remember when you were a kid. I remember what you used to do. You can't be that big person we're hearing about because we know you. We've seen you. We've been alongside you. You were a good kid, a smart kid. We're like, you were great, but you were just Mary's kid. You were here. You were part of the community. And Jesus says, wow, despite everything going on, you still don't believe. So then he went to visit the other villages that were near, teaching the people who lived in those villages. So Jesus is surprised again. He's surprised that the people of his hometown had no belief in him. Their lack of faith, in contrast to the centurion's abundant faith, led to nothing happening. So here's my point today as we begin our journey through growing our faith. Your trust in God matters. If you experience increasing trust in Jesus, if your faith is growing through all ages and stages of life, when you experience the hardships of life, your faith will last through that. And you might be thinking, well, what's the benefit of your faith lasting through that? When people go through hardships and they have Jesus walking beside them and they lean into God, there is health and redemption and love that can come out of the most awful and awkward of places. When people's faith remains intact through the crappiest of times, there is a chance for reconciliation and love to be an outcome. When people abandon faith, look only to themselves and look to bring down others, look to play by the tactics of this world and make sure they end up on top and everyone else end below them. When they go through the ups and downs and we put ourselves first and we do all of those things, you know what comes out of that? Bitterness, rage, envy. I'm sure you in your families, as I in my family, have spaces where because of people's decisions and because they do not hold on to the hope of Jesus, there ends up being bitterness. There ends up being incongruentness. There ends up being awkwardness. There ends up being a lack of forgiveness. And the end result of that is that people just become unhealthy. We don't need to raise our hands because we have loved ones who have gone through that. We ourselves have gone through seasons of that, haven't we? Where we put our faith to the side, our trust in Jesus to the side if you're a Jesus follower, and you went out on your own and you said, you know what? Everyone else is doing it this way. I'm going to do it as well. And when you endured that loss and you went through that hardship and you turned to something other than what is from God, you ended up going to a place that was not good, that hurt you, that hurt me, that hurt the people around us. If we experience a growing relationship with Jesus, when we go through the ups and downs, we come out the other side more whole. But if we experience decreasing trust in Jesus, then eventually your faith will be lost through the ups and downs, and life will become whatever life is that you make it. And that's a hard place to be. And in fact, for some of you, you're in church today and you're looking back at seasons of your life going, yeah, I think I lost my faith through that. And life hit hard. And now that I'm back in a space where I'm trying to be with Jesus, be with the God who made me, I'm starting to heal. But when I was walking on my own, there's a lot of damage that happened. Maybe that's part of your story. Maybe you're sitting here today going, you know what? By the grace of God, somehow I have walked from strength to strength, and through every low point, through every loss, through every death, through every brokenness, through every friend that's been divorced or children that have cut off from their parents, through all the awkward things that are going on in our life, through every bankruptcy, somehow you've come out the other end and gone, I have walked with God, and it has been incredible. Whatever your journey, wherever you've come from, whatever walk you are walking, my hope is that you will have an increasing trust in Jesus, that you will take courage from the story of the centurion, that if Jesus says something, that you can be sure that it is going to happen. I believe that you've been created by the God of this universe. I believe you've been put in the place and space that you are for a reason. No one is where they are by accident. You may be thinking at this time like, why am I in this workplace? Why am I in this relationship? Why is this happening? But there's a reason, there's a purpose. I believe that deeply. And I believe that Jesus is holding on to you and inviting you to trust him deeper with your life. Big faith is the confidence God is with you in everything that you do. And what we're going to do for the next 5 weeks is we're going to look at each of the ways that God seems to cultivate and grow our faith. We're going to look through the things of practical teaching, private disciplines, personal ministry, providential relationships, and pivotal circumstances. And I just want to urge you, make it a priority to get along to church the next 5 Sundays, because I believe your faith is worth investing in. Because it may be the only thing that gets you through the ups and downs that this life has to offer. Let me pray for you. Father God, thank you so much for the story of the centurion. And thank you, God, as well for the story of Jesus' hometown. Both of these moments in the life of Jesus offer us incredible insight into the 2 things that amaze you. Our faith. I pray right now that we will be people who have a surprising faith because we trust you, and that you will do what you say you will do. And I pray right now for everyone who's in this room, for everyone who's listening online, and everyone who listens to this in the future. God, may you help us to cultivate a living, growing, thriving relationship with you. Because this side of heaven, that may be the only thing that gets us through some of life's most difficult moments. In your name and for your glory. Amen.